Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to NRRL Thursday 50% Division. We are here today for Season 1, Round 1. We had the pre-season test last week in Monza, and we saw who won that. And now we are here today for the opening race of the inaugural season. We are here at Albert Park Street Circuit in Australia for Round 1. I'm your commentator, Jack, as always. It is a pleasure to be here. Joining me alongside me in the commentary booth is my brother Lewis. Good evening. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm good. So I'm looking forward to a second day. Obviously, we normally do Sundays, so nice to have a second day here with Wednesday. And thankfully, as opposed to the Sunday tier, we are actually here for the first race.
Yeah, exactly. And we're here to witness all the action all season long. May I remind you, this is the 50% division, so we will have our usually scheduled 18-minute qualifying, then followed by a 50% race rather than a 100% race. But either way, I'm sure the action will be incredible. From all of our 20 drivers, you will see mainly some familiar faces from the 100% here. However, we do have some new people like Finn Joe in the Mercedes. I don't think I've seen Clownfish before, who's in the Aston Martin. We've got, let me just work out how to pronounce that, Elthianol, I'm gonna say, in the Haas. We've got people like Spamsy in the Williams. And I believe that's all of our new guys. If I've missed you out, I do apologise. But some familiar faces and some new ones. But Lewis, with it being the first race, obviously we can't really make any predictions. We've not really got any stats to go off of in terms of championship standings or race results. But if you look at that field today, who would you tell me that you are looking out for that strikes your eye? Oh,
I
sorry,
think.
before I go to you, there's been contact between Anarchy and the
Oh
Ferrari of Dan
dear.
Lovett. Anarchy, we were watching him because he was the first man to begin a flying lap, and Dan just simply did not get out the way of him, I'm presuming. And Anarchy has gone straight into the back of the Ferrari. Sorry about that, Lewis, but I saw a
Well,
bit of contact, and that's quite an interesting way to start qualifying.
that was going to ruin my pick. I was going to say Dan Lovett's the easy favourite. I personally think, and he's gone and ruined it after 5 seconds. So, no, Dan Lovett, I'm afraid you're in the bin now, mate. I can't say you. CRBT, I think, in the Sunday tier is somebody that's been up there for pretty much all of the races. If I remember, he won. I don't have a great memory. Didn't he win on Sunday? I'm pretty
He
sure he
did,
did.
yes. And with that
Um,
win, he is now the championship
Dominated the
leader.
race. Yeah, so I think you have to go to him. Dan Lovett, all jokes aside, I think, yeah, Dan Lovett will be up there. Um, Gav, I think, Meldrum, if he can stay within the yellow lines. I think it will be largely the same as Sunday. Obviously, a couple of new boys here, which I'm excited to see how they stack up. Finn Joe with a decent lap there, 17-0. Falcon 18-1. So early advantage for Finn Joe.
Most certainly. And I mean, 8 tenths of a second clear from the likes of Michela. Gavboy now gets within 5 tenths of him. But Finjo, like I say, I do believe he is one of the new runners in this league and instantly to the top of the timesheets. Although now Mr. Jabe in the Aston Martin takes provisional pole with a 16.8. So I also do want to remind you that this is a equal performance tier. Our Sundays, the 100% races, are realistic performance. So the Saubers will be the slowest and the McLarens will be the quickest car. And we put the quicker drivers in the slower cars and the slower drivers in the quicker cars just to sort of try and balance it out. But this is equal performance. So the times that you're seeing is just the true, genuine pace of everyone. As we've got a few people who are currently on laps, and we've got
Anarchy out.
Anarchy who is out. I believe he's retired in the pit lane. So after that contact with Dan Lovett, that is not ideal for him. Was it Dan Lovett that got the 5 place grid penalty, or was it Anarchy? Do you know, Lewis?
I believe it was Anarchy. I'm pretty sure it was Anarchy. Obviously that would render it irrelevant now, given he is going to be starting last. So not an ideal session for him, but luckily for him, it can't really get worse in the race, can it?
Yeah, exactly. But Dan Lovett goes provisionally P8 with an 18.2. So those laps at the top from Finn and from Mr. Jabe do seem to be quite good so far. Personally, I don't really know the times around Australia, but we'll look to the Haskar now, who comes round the final couple of corners, looks tight and neat, a little bit of a wobble, but in his first outing in NRRL, where is he going to put the Haas as he comes across the line? Goes P11 with a 23.9, so that's probably not representative. I'd imagine there's been some sort of mistake there for the Haas driver. We've now got Josh, who's on a lap in the Ferrari, and we will see where he is able to put the Ferrari. I will mention as well, the man that won in Monza, Ferrari driver Tom, he is not here today. So in terms of lead pace, we're not really sure who is going to be up at the sharp end. You know, we kind of have an idea from the 100% tier, people like Josh as he goes up to P3 with a 17.5. People like Mr. Jabe, Gav Boy, Dan Lovett, you would assume will be up there. But some of the new guys as well could really throw a nail into the straw. But we're now about 7 minutes into qualifying. Falco Warrior has left the session. The man currently in P8. I'm sure he will reconnect at some point. But Lewis, looking at someone like Finjo, when we don't really know what his pace is, it's his first outing in the league, being up there already, do you think that will worry some of the more experienced drivers? You know, I'm sure that the guys in the 100% here are quite comfortable racing each other now. They know what they're doing. As we're now on board with Finjo, who is about a tenth and a half up. Would you say, like a Mr. Jabe, be worried that this new guy is coming in and is immediately setting immense pace?
I think you would have a level of concern and a level of maybe not really too sure where he's going to strike in pace. I think, as you say, people like Dan, Anarchy, Meldrum, they've been in this league, been racing each other, so they have a rough idea of everyone's pace. And I mean, me and you have both had it before. You've been in leagues and you think you have a rough idea of where you're going to be, and suddenly in comes a new driver and is right up there at the front, and that's another problem you have to face. But I think most of them will be confident in their abilities to think that on their day they can beat a Finjo who goes fastest. A great lap there. I saw the end of his middle sector, 3 1/3 tenths up. Great stuff from him there. I thought he'd backed out of that lap at first. But I think that now will certainly set some eyeballs on Finjo. And, he's not too far off of somebody like Mr. J, but only a tenth and a half. So I think they will look at it as just around largely the same pace, very track dependent, I think. But I think they'll have full confidence they can beat him.
Yeah, I do agree. I think you've got to have a level of confidence to you. You know, being a league racer, you want to believe you're the best. It's like someone like a Max Verstappen mindset. You believe you're best because if you don't, how can you be the best? So I'm sure people like Mr. Jabe, Gav Boy, Dan Lovett are quite confident coming into the session. But then seeing one of the new guys who you haven't raced before setting really good pace, I mean, the 16.7 is very, very good. I would be a little bit worried, and I would definitely keep my eyes on them as the session continues. Obviously, qualifying pace and race pace, two very different things, but we shall see what happens as Sean sets his first flying lap. We've got a couple more cars who are looking to set laps. Wiz Jokies is currently on a lap in the Haas. Now let's see if we can find... We've got CRBT, who's currently on his outlap. Obviously, the championship leader in the 100% tier. Lewis, as he comes to the end of his outlap, why don't you take us through a flying lap around Albert Park?
CRBT. So, well, he obviously... You're looking for somebody like him. This is your first lap with 8 minutes left. You're looking to do another lap here. So obviously you get right on the power, DRS wide open, overtake down the main straight. And here there's a lot of corners that you have to, time to perfection. So here you look to try and not overlap. He does that well through turn 1, through turn 2, DRS wide open, overtake again. Now down towards here, it's very easy to make a mistake, and if you do, it's punishable, as you see that gravel trap there. He manages to get through it fairly well. You want to bounce off that curb there. You don't want to avoid that. Now here is somewhere where you can lose a lot of time and even crash. He manages to get through it perfectly fine. A 26.3, so it seems like a decent sector. And now here's a big problem, as he actually has to back out of his lap there. But from what it looked like the car was maybe biting at him a little bit, but he looked like he was able to control it well. So I'm sure that when he gets ready for what I imagine he will go on, charge that battery up and get ready for a lap the next time round. But it seemed like the car maybe wasn't as smooth as he'd like.
No, I mean, he did invalidate at that corner with the car in front of him. Maybe just a bit of a distraction caused him to go a little bit wide. It is very difficult around here. This is almost like a Monaco without the walls, essentially. A bit more fast-paced than Monaco. It's almost like a high-speed Monaco in a way. But it is very difficult to try and get out the way of other drivers and see where other people are, and obviously know if people are on hot laps or not. So we will see.
I think he's
happens.
going again here.
Okay, well, take us through another lap then, Lewis.
Well, so here we go again. So you want to get nice and down on the power through turn 1 and 2. He does well, but gets blocked again, which is really bad luck for him. He manages to continue on with his lap though, and I imagine he might get blocked again here. It looks like he has. He's actually lost the rear of the car, which is, if he continues on with this lap, probably isn't going to be a particularly strong one. He carries on, managed to get through that difficult sort of uphill like corner there. 26.7 in the first sector, so about 4 tenths down from his first. And now here, to me, is a very important part of the circuit. You've got to go full throttle, get that DRS wide open. He chooses not to use his overtake here, which probably is the right choice. And now here is probably the most challenging complex of the track to not invalidate at. He seems to get through well, skids on the curb. That's going to cost him a little bit of time. Might have potentially have invalidated. I didn't see if he did or not.
He did.
Here can be a difficult one. You don't want to touch the curb too much. He did invalidate. Okay. You don't want to do what he did just there and touch the curb that much, or you will bounce. But a 16.5 for McCullough. He goes to P1 and he goes into the pits. So not an ideal first running for BT. But the lucky thing for him is still 5 minutes left of this session. So he will have another chance.
Exactly, and that is the key. He obviously hasn't set a lap thus far, but there is enough time for him to get in the pits, change the tyres and come back out. So I'm sure we will see him back on track and setting a competitive lap time. The only issue is he has left it to the final lap, as we've got Bruiser, who's been disqualified from parking in a dangerous location. I'm not sure what that was about, but we'll see if we can get any info on that. But the issue with BT is that with that disqualification, it only leaves him 1 lap, which is far from ideal, because this is a track where you do really want to push the limits and ride over the curbs and take risks. And now he's almost got to set a banker lap as his final one, as we've got the Haas car going very wide at turn 1. Somehow doesn't invalidate, but most certainly lost a heap of time going through the gravel there. We've got Clownfish, who has invalidated his lap at turn 1. The 2 McLarens are the only 2 cars who haven't set laps who are still in this session. Meldrum is currently on I believe, an outlap now. Yes, he is. As he locks up into the penultimate corner, which will not help his exit onto the main straight, and goes very wide, almost touching the wall as we come across the line to begin the flying lap then. Burning overtake down the main straight into turn 1, keeps it tight and neat, rides over the curb, and you can gain a lot of time at turn 1. So very difficult to keep it in the track limits. Like you say, Lewis, this is an incredibly hard braking zone, and Meldrum does lock up a bit, runs a little bit wider than you probably would like to. For some reason, it's still telling me that he's on an outlap when I don't believe he is. I mean, we've just seen him come across the line, but we unfortunately aren't going to get any sector times. As we now come to the second DRS zone, a few cars up ahead of him that will hopefully scamper out of the way, one of them being his teammate BT, who gives him a little bit of a slipstream as we now head to the fast-paced chicane, swings it in nicely, all looks good off board, as we've got the Red Bull of Simpendale with a 15.8. I don't know where that has come from at all, but an incredible lap from the Red Bull driver, and that is provisional pole by nearly 7/10 of a second. Incredible stuff from the Red Bull. I believe he's one of the new guys in the league. And what a
Ultra
way
backs
to
out.
show that you're here.
Yeah, I was just following the end of Meldrum's lap there. I'm not too sure if he maybe invalidated or just decided that wasn't a good lap. But yeah, he goes into the pits, and I don't know because I can't see the current time left. Is he going to have enough time to do another lap? That
I'm
could
not
be
sure.
very.
We have got the yellow flags in the final sector, which is covering the timing screens, but what I'm watching here is Beatty. It's very, very important for him that he gets a lap, and it's a 26.3, but he invalidates again. He is going to have enough time to charge the battery, but the best is going to be taken out of those soft compound tyres now after pushing for a whole sector. Beatty is really struggling here. Really struggling.
It is a circuit where being on the limit and over the limit, there's a very fine line between lots of corners where you either can get it perfect one lap and the next lap try and do the exact same thing and you're in the wall. It's very difficult. I'm on board here with Dan Lovett as he comes around the final corner. Seems to have been a fairly decent lap for his standards in P12, looking to improve. He comes across the line and goes into P6. So more of what we have seen on Sundays from Dan Lovett, now carrying over onto Wednesdays. Doesn't look like he's going again. He might have the time to get back, charge the battery, and do another lap if he's fueled for it. But I think he'll be pretty pleased with that to go from P12 up to P6.
You would assume so, but I am now going to watch Beatty's whole lap. And I'm going to stay on board for this, because this is an important lap now. He will not be able to go again. So this is the current championship leader on Sundays fighting to get up from 17th. He will start a best position of 16th with Anarchy's penalty, but he needs this lap. It's a 26.4 in the first sector, so it's competitive, but it's not what he has been doing. Like I say, those tyres will be gone off a bit. The best of them will be gone, but as he now comes towards the fast-paced chicane, this is where he's been invalidating before. He turns it left, it turns nicely, and that is within track limits. So hopefully, for BT's sake, this will now be a valid lap. It's the only lap that he is going to get in this session as he loses the rear on entry and all over the curb. And that is only going to lose him time as he comes into the final sector now. 2 corners to go for BT. It has not been an ideal lap from the Sunday Championship leader. The car barely wanting to turn in round the final corner. But where does the McLaren go? As the session now ends, BT's only 7th.
You say it wasn't a good lap. It was better than nothing, so he's definitely happier to be starting there. But I think he will be extremely frustrated with how that lap turned out. As you saw, the final corner just could not get that through. And immediately, has he been displaced there? I think he has.
I believe he
I
has,
can't
yes,
say.
by Josh. He's now down to P8. And we have now got Sean and Mr. Jabe, who are both on laps. Sean invalidates. He will be best of 3rd. Now to Mr. Jabe then. The man that was on provisional pole position until the Red Bull took it away from him. He has a snap coming through the final couple of corners. But where can the Aston Martin go? He is one of 2 drivers that is still on their lap. Paul Codd is the other one. But as the Aston comes towards the line, is there an improvement for him? There is an improvement of time, not an improvement of position. And that is going to be your order then, as Sean invalidated and has spun at the final corner just to make sure that he won't be doing anything more. But that is your grid then. Simpendale is P1 in the Red Bull. From Finn Joe in the Mercedes, it is a Mercedes 2-3 as Sean finishes in 3rd. We've got McKellar in the Sauber in 4th. Mr. Jabe in 5th. It is a Ferrari 6 and 7. Dan Lovett and Josh making up those positions. It is then almost like Noah's Ark as we've got a McLaren 8-9. BT leading his teammate Meldrum. We've then got Spamsy in the Williams making up the P10. But Lewis, what are your thoughts on that session?
A fantastic lap to take pole position there. One almost out of the blue. I thought that the 16-1 was going to be the lap that took it, but a 15.8 is a fantastic lap for Simpendale, and he will be mightily pleased with that. And I think, somebody like Mr. Jabe or Dan Lovett, they will be thinking, what have I got to do to get onto the podium? Because laps like that, you don't see them very often. And a 15.8, yes, only a 2/10 gap to P1, but 6 tenths to P3 is very, very strong in this league. So it's a cracking lap.
Exactly that. I couldn't agree more. We now go to a 5-minute break where the drivers just get reminded, to change the setups, change the strategies and whatnot. So it gives us a little bit of a cool down as we can now debrief before the race goes on. But a very interesting grid there. Obviously, a couple of new faces that we're not used to. One of them taking pole position. I would have to say the shock of that session would be someone like an Anarchy or a BT who isn't really up where we expect them to be, especially after the Sunday 100% division. But overall, an incredibly interesting qualifying and a grid that is going to make for, hopefully, an incredible Australian Grand Prix. Now, if you were watching the 100% division when we went to Australia, it was nothing short of chaotic. So hopefully, we don't have that today. However, if we can have the chaos without the crashes, sign me up. So, Lewis, you've been league racing for a number of years now. If you're someone who's starting anywhere really from second to sixth, how are you planning this race? What is your strategy looking like? What's your fuel looking like? How are you going into this race to try and take the lead and ultimately take the win?
Well, we've spoke before. There's two different types of drivers you can be, and we've compared them almost to a Max Verstappen and a Valtteri Bottas type driver. Somebody you could be conservative and think of the long picture like a Valtteri Bottas, or you can just go lap after lap and think of it only in that moment like a Max Verstappen. And there's no real way to tell which one is the easier or better way to go. I will say I am more of the Bottas type of more conservative, not too aggressive, can be aggressive when you need to be. But if I'm lining up anywhere between P2 to P6, I'm just thinking get through the start intact, hopefully gain a position or two, and think of the race in front because it isn't just one on the first lap. Ever as we've said before, and as is said all the time in Formula One and in all types of racing, you can't win it on the first lap, but you can lose it.
5 red lights ahead of the drivers here at Albert Park, and they were held for a while, but it is lights out, and away we go. Simpendale does get away well from the start, and I believe there's some sort of lobby glitch going on as we've got 13 drivers DNF'd.
Well, this doesn't look good.
What is going on here then? I don't really know what's happening here. We've got 13 drivers all DNF'd off the start. I've never seen anything like this in my near 8 years of league racing.
I can say the same.
I honestly do not know what to say, as we've got Tom that does almost an Alex Albon impression. Clownfish is out as well. So I want to say we're getting the lobby restarted here, as that is not... that is not representative, shall we say. And I guess
I think
we will go
somebody
again then.
has mistaken to tell the drivers we're in Australia in 2025 and not in Monaco in 1996, because that is, to pardon the quote from Murray Walker, what the hell is going on?
Well, we do have a lobby restart. So essentially ignore everything you've just seen in that, what it was, 30 seconds to a minute of the Australian Grand Prix. We will get reloaded shortly, and we will be live for the Australian Grand Prix. So let's get ourselves out of that session and into the new one whenever we receive an invite. I do not think I've seen anything like that ever. That was quite the interesting race start, to be honest.
Loved every second of it. 10 out of
But
10 race.
apparently it was because someone readied up too early. Like I was mentioning, there is normally about a 5-minute break between qualifying and the race. And it was... I don't believe we know who readied up, but someone readied up a bit too early, and we will be restarting the lobby. There will probably still be a 5-minute break when we get in the lobby, just in terms of, people getting their setup back on and redoing the strategy and the fuel and whatnot. But I said I hope we don't have the chaos that we had in Australia a couple of weeks ago for the 100% here. It seems that we've got it. So we can only hope that the racing side of chaos doesn't follow us, but we have got some form of chaos now. Yeah, this is quite difficult to keep up with now, so we will see what happens.
A bizarre way for a race to start. Can't quite see how that actually caused all of that. But yeah, if you're anyone that was still in the race, I think you're delighted you got to lead for about 30 seconds or so.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the good thing for the Red Bull is that he will now know that his start is quite good, and he's almost done a practice start. So yeah, we will see what happens. We will get invited to the lobby whenever one is made. I do apologise if you are in the chat watching the action, and we should get going anytime soon. I don't really know what to talk about now. It's quite awkward now we're not actually in a
Yeah.
race. It's a bit like, well, what do we do now? We just got to try and wait for an invite somewhere and see what happens. I do believe everyone will be joining us, so it should, still be a full grid and all be fine. But yeah.
It is a very problematic thing to happen because now we're sat here for the next few minutes, as you say, not with any real information to talk about, as we can't have the qualifying lineup, as we don't have that ability to go back and look. So was a very
Yeah.
entertaining session though. I thought a lot of drivers really stood out as to where I thought they would be. Obviously the new drivers, difficult to say where you think they're going to be, but I think drivers that are normally on Sunday will be looking at that slightly shaking, thinking that they're going to have to up their game to be as successful on Wednesday nights, which is what you want. You want to see someone like Beatty, who controlled the race on Sunday, be tested. You don't want to see him run away with it, which he hasn't done, to be fair. But you want to see him have to fight against other drivers, which, with him starting lower down than you'd expect, should make for a very entertaining race.
Yeah, I agree. It should be an interesting one. We've got new drivers who we're not really aware of, so it'll be interesting to see how they race and their general pace and whatnot. And overall, I think qualifying was an incredibly interesting session. We had, the new guys up there. Some of the guys, because obviously, like I said at the start of the session, this is equal performance as opposed to the Sundays being realistic. So some of the guys that are in the slower cars, say like a Mr. Jabe, who's not really up there in the Sundays qualifying, was really up there tonight. So it's quite interesting also because those guys in the realistic cars who are not rapid, but are put in a bit of a slower car, now being on equal performance, they can show their true pace, and it is quite interesting.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, it will be interesting to see guys like Dan Lovett, who are used to starting, in Belgium, to be fair, who are used to starting up towards first, second, and third, be sixth, seventh, eighth. Now they're in that mid pack. They have to approach the start differently. You can't be somebody who's normally at the front and approach a start starting from P7 the same way you would P1. P1, you're looking more to control the start and keep that lead. Whereas if you're starting P7, P8, and you know that you can be even higher, you're looking at just gaining as many positions as possible, really. So it will be very interesting to see how aggressive they are at the start. But at the same time, one thing we haven't considered as well is these drivers are used to racing 58, 60, 70 laps. They've only got 29 here, so they have to be a little bit more aggressive to get through those drivers on time. Whereas on Sundays, they have, almost a whole nother hour to do it. Whereas here, they don't have very long.
That is the thing, as opposed to the 100% races where you've got quite a lot of laps to bide your time and work with the strategy. Compared to that, this is incredibly fast paced and you have to make your moves quickly. You've kind of got to throw the strategy a bit out of the window because there's normally only 1 to 2 stops. So it does throw a real mix in. And I do think that's almost where the new guys have an advantage as opposed to the guys who are doing the 100% here because they're not used to the 100% races. So let's say they're more, I guess, more experienced on the faster paced races, the different strategies and whatnot, the fuel loads, whatever. Whereas the guys that race on Sunday, they are used to, these long races where it's quite mentally demanding and you've got to stay locked in for so long that when it's so short compared to the 100% race, I mean, it is literally half of what Sundays are, this division. It's difficult to get yourself in that zone knowing that you're only doing half of what you normally do. So the pace can be quite different.
Absolutely. I think you have to approach, as I've said, you have to approach a 50% race a very different way to how you approach a 100 because you don't have that freedom of there could be 4, 5, even 6 safety cars. Here, there's not really enough time for anything too crazy to happen because when they would start to happen, you've only got 3, 4, 5 laps left. So everything is more fast paced, almost to the point where it feels like a sprint compared to a Sunday race. So everything is a lot more on the line and aggressive. Whereas, on Sunday, for example, when there was an incident at the start, we were saying how you've just got to forget it. There's 69 laps more to go. Can't let that get in your head. With here, you haven't got very much. So you do have to look at it in a very different way to where everything has to be a lot more decisive. You can't take risks as much as you could on Sundays because you don't have enough time really to make those risks work.
No, I do agree, and I think you bring up a good point of the fact that it is almost like a sprint, and especially with the sort of safety cars, on the Sundays there's quite a large amount of safety cars, so there is that downtime where you can chill, think about your strategy, think about what you're doing. In a 50% race, those safety cars are going to come a lot thicker and it's going to wear down the race time a lot quicker. And that is going to be very difficult for everyone that races on Sundays to adjust to because instead of a safety car knocking off, say, 3 laps, the safety car really is. Let me word it like this. Say in Hungary, or say the Australia 100% race we did, a safety car would knock off, let's say, overall 10% of the race time you have. In a 50% race, that then comes 35-40% of the race. And that's a lot less time to then get your overtakes done, do your strategy, change your tyres, whatnot. And it just brings everyone that bit closer that you are going to be seeing more battles, you are going to be seeing more overtakes, you are going to need to be properly mentally locked in to the entire Grand Prix because you don't have that amount of time to be able to, take the risks, like you say, and make wacky strategies work because there just isn't that race time available.
Absolutely. You have to be a lot more, as I said, decisive because you don't have the freedom of knowing you have, as I say, nearly an hour, hour and a half to allow these things to unfold and allow for more incidents to happen that benefit off of you. There just simply isn't that time. So you have to do everything as soon as you have the idea. You really can't take risks here on, and especially at a track like Australia, on tyres or anything like that, because it will come back to bite you in a race like this.
Exactly, but we are finally going to get going. I would imagine there will be a 5 minute break or so for people to get the setups on and do the strategies and whatnot. But we are finally back in the lobby and in the session, awaiting our race start. So we will finally be able to see the grid order, I do hope, and whatnot. Although I guess, no, we can't see the grid order. So it is going to be quite blind. I do believe whoever readied up at the start will be required to start from the back of the grid. So we will have to keep an eye on who's last, because whoever it was obviously the person that A, readied up too quickly, but B, if it is someone that, you know, was towards the front end of the grid, that's really going to impact mentally how they're going into this race and whatnot. We've got a viewer in the chat asking who took pole. It was the Red Bull driver of, I can't remember his name now, Semp something or Simp something.
Yeah, was the first part of his name.
Yeah, Semp took pole in the Red Bull. Dan Lovett, I believe, was 6th or 7th, I want to say. 6th, 7th.
Yeah, it was around that.
8-9. So the Ferraris being ahead of them, it would have been a 6-7 for Ferrari. 6th, I believe, was Dan Lovett. So he had a relatively good session. I do wonder, the only annoying thing for Anarchy is that 5-place grid penalty might have been rescinded. So if he had done a lap and, say, put it P10, whereas he would have been starting P15 initially, would that have been rescinded and would he have been able to start P10?
I think it would depend on what the incident would occur. I can't say because I didn't see it. So normally you can get given penalties on the game given to you by the game for things that probably don't warrant them. But I would imagine, given that he retired, that they won't tag on that penalty.
Yeah.
But I think for his sake anyway, you'll be looking to, wherever you start, it's not a great place to start, given how he's normally up in that 8th, 9th, 10th sort of atmosphere. But here we go.
Here we are then, 5 red lights at Albert Park for the drivers. They weren't held for long and it is lights out. And away we go, and immediately it's a great start from Finn, who takes the lead before turn 1 even hits. And a great start as we've got McKellar, who was off the track. We've got yellow flags at turn 1 for Clownfish and Sergeant Devsey. But the dream start for Finn, Mercedes lead from Red Bull. Dan Lovett up to 3rd, so a great start from the Ferrari driver. We saw McKellar going off at turn 1 onto the grass, as we've still got yellow flags now, I believe, for the Aston Martin. Beatty is up to 5th, Jabe is down to 6th, and we've got scuffling all up and down the grid as we've got a bit of contact in the background there between Clownfish and the Haas. But the dream start for Mercedes, but the Red Bull is now coming back. Towards the chicane we go then. There isn't a gap round the outside. The Red Bull will have to hold position for now. But the dream start for Mercedes. Finn leads for the Silver Arrows.
A great start from Finn. Yeah, I was looking at, as they're still wheel to wheel, even through the final couple of corners. Not really going to get a place through there, so you have to just head down, focus for another 28 laps. I was looking at what happened at turn 1, and again see Elthenial and Clownfish having an incident at the penultimate corner. It was a very chaotic start. There was an Alpine round, an Aston Martin round, lots of drama. How there wasn't a safety car, or at least a virtual one, I'm not too sure. But here comes Simpendale on the hard tyres compared to the mediums of the rest of the top 6 around him. Can't put his way through the outside, would have very quickly become the inside, not able to make it through there.
An incredible battle between the top 2, and Dan Lovett is licking his lips looking at this as he is now well within the DRS as the Red Bull goes wide. Is this Dan Lovett's chance? The DRS will be enabled for the drivers, but the Red Bull is closest towards the Mercedes, towards the fast-paced chicane we go, and to the outside goes the Red Bull. Is there enough space around the outside? He's going to try it, but he doesn't get the exit, and now here comes the Ferrari of Dan on the faster tyres. Is there going to be a gap there? There isn't, as the Red Bull now goes to the outside as Finn goes defensive into the final couple of corners. The front four really pulling away from the rest of the grid here as Dan gets a little bit of mid-corner understeer. We've got a few people picking up penalties down towards the back of the grid, but an incredible opening couple of laps. And now here comes the Red Bull again with the battery and DRS engaged. The pole sitter retakes the lead on lap 3. Simpendale in the Red Bull back up to P1, and the double DRS zone is going to hurt Finn as Dan Lovett is now attacking, and to the outside he goes. He brakes later and he is round the outside, now turns to the inside. They are wheel to wheel and there is contact, and Dan Lovett with a half spin, and that knocks him behind McKellar and behind Beatty. The Ferrari down to 5th and now under pressure from the Haas of Whiz Jokies. Not ideal for the Ferrari, but Simpendale is scampering away with that incident happening. DRS for Finn will ensure he does gain a bit more, but an incredible bit of action between the top 4. Contact on lap 3, Dan down to 5th.
You could almost see exactly what was going to happen at that corner when Dan kept it round. You could say it was a rash move from Dan to stick it still in there. I will say, though, how aggressive Simpendale has been. Fantastic to see that. Absolutely desperate to get on with it. And as we've pointed out, the tyre difference, he is on those hard tyres, so he's going to be running longer in the race, but still showing like it's not bothering him whatsoever. What should be a speed difference is proving largely ineffective.
Whiz Jokies has fallen a bit down. He's gained a lot of places, but the main gainer on lap 4, Tom JM, in the V-Carb, is up to 6th and has just set the fastest lap of the race, now chasing down the Ferrari of Dan Lovett. Both teams based in Italy. Maranello for Ferrari, Faenza for V-Carb, and it looks like the V-Carb man is quicker on the harder tyres, but are the mediums already starting to lose their best life as here comes the V-Carb. Much better exit, and surely this is a move that is easily done as the DRS is engaged and there's just not a gap. He has to back out of it as Dan moves late, and towards the chicane there isn't going to be enough momentum for the V-Carb to be able to gain, but there is now going to be a second dose of the DRS. Is there enough of a gap? There isn't, and Tom is going to stay in 6th place for now. During all of that, Finn has actually dropped to 4th, McKellar up to 2nd, Beatty up to 3rd, although he is still battling with the Mercedes man, but all change up at the front. Simpendale in the Red Bull flying away into the lead as now Finn is looking to regain his position on Beatty, but Beatty with the battery advantage is slightly going to pull away. McKellar trying to pull away in 2nd place, a 9/10 gap now as Beatty has a bit of a snap on the exit. Incredible action, but Simpendale running away in the early stages.
And this is exactly what is going to benefit Simpendale, because he isn't wasting those tyres fighting whilst these boys behind him absolutely are in that dirty air. So he can probably even extend this stint longer than what he wanted to. As a big snap from Beatty there on what has already been a tough day for him. It looked like it was starting to improve when he gets up to 3rd, but still just that slight reminder you could be caught out at any moment. But as I was saying, Simpendale, this is exactly what he will want, and it puts him at a very, very strong position in this early stage of the race. 2.5 seconds, so well out of DRS range. A dream opening 5 laps for him, but the rest of these will be so frustrated with their starts, especially Fingio, as he was up there in P2. He was hoping when he took the lead that he could kind of control the race, and now he's not even on the podium.
Tom has got past Dan and is well on the back of this train that goes up to 2nd. McKellar leads it. It's then Beatty, Finn and the Mercedes, and then Tom. But the hard tyres, 6 laps into this race, evidently working well, and the V-Carb is gaining as we've got Paul Codd round at the final corner. I don't believe any damage will be done there. Not sure if there was contact or the driver has just made an error. But incredible battling between the top 5. Dan Lovett is now starting to fall back, but Tom JM is looking incredibly racy, up 14 positions from his starting position. Incredible stuff as Beatty picks up a 3-second penalty. And
comes
here
Tom.
comes Tom on the Mercedes. It looks like the move's going to be easy as the DRS is engaged. He's got the inside line, and there is nothing Finn can do to defend that position. The V-Carb up to 4th, and now the charge begins on the McLaren. He has got so much grip on those hard tyres. It looks like he's almost got super softs on as BT tries to think about attacking. They do say attack is the best form of defense, but he isn't able to get the move done, and Tom is going to be very, very impotent to try and get on with this and get on the back of Simpendale as the gap at the lead now 4.7 seconds. But here comes Tom in the V-Carb. He's got battery to deploy. He doesn't choose to use it. BT goes to the inside of the McLaren, takes P2. Now, what does Tom do? With the change of position in front of him, is he able to capitalise? The V-Carb with a good exit. McKellar without DRS. To the inside goes Tom. Is there enough of a gap there? There is. He locks up a little as they go into turn 3, and he has to stick behind the rear wing of the Sauber. But incredible stuff. 4 cars within about 500 metres trying to share the same piece of tarmac. BT currently leads this train from McKellar, Tom and Finn.
Just non-stop action-packed racing. It's like they listened to what we had to say in qualifying and took the advice. You have to get on with it. But Tom, may I point out as well, on those hard tyres, battling with those on the mediums, fantastic stuff to see the pace he has. He's going to be a big problem for these two if he goes onto those medium tyres in the later stages. But here he goes, past BT, and BT can't fight it. So now Tom up into the podium positions. Could he get past McKellar? And shockingly, could we have a hard tyre 1-2 and a medium all the way from 3 to P6? Something you wouldn't really expect at this stage of the race, but it seems like right now the hards are the way to go.
Most certainly, as Tom with the DRS, he is using his battery very, very wisely, conserving down the main straight. He knows when to use it. A little bit of a wobble through turn 1, but the hard tyres look the better ones. Lap 8 of 29 here at Albert Park. And the hard tyres, I thought it was a bit of a gamble to start on them, but evidently the gamble has paid off in a jackpot as McKellar goes wide. Meldrum picks up a 3-second penalty, but Tom and Simpendale absolutely flying. Now, the interesting thing will be, is this just the hard tyre pace compared to the mediums, or is Tom really that quick? Well, he definitely is quick because he's gone round the outside of the Sauber and up into 2nd place. So now the interesting thing to see will be, does he gain on the Red Bull? If he does, it's evidently his pace. If not, the hard tyres are the ones to be on.
And he is. He is. You see that gap there was 7 seconds when he got through at 13 and 14. It could be that DRS helping that because he was behind McKellar, but he's already taken about 8 tenths out of Simpendale, and McKellar goes into the pits.
A very early pit stop there for the Kick Sauber driver, but he is looking for the undercut, but a 10-second penalty is not going to help him, and that is exactly what he has picked up. So the first to blink, the Kick Sauber, it did seem reactive, Lewis, coming into the pits after he's been overtaken, but it is not going to help his race at all. A 10-second penalty, you wouldn't imagine he'll box again, going onto the hard compound tyres, coming out in 11th behind Mr. Jabe, and Meldrum is actually going to compound those issues and make them worse as he now goes up into 11th. So McKellar with all the work to do as BT picks up another penalty. Somewhere along the lines, Finn Joe and Dan Lovett have picked up penalties. But speaking of Finn Joe in the Mercedes, he's got DRS, BT doesn't, and Finn takes back 3rd place.
And I've been staying on board here with McKellar, the worst part of the circuit to get caught up because there is just no place to overtake. And here he could get stuck in a mini DRS train with Meldrum and Mr. Jabe, which are 2 drivers that are not easy to overtake in the slightest. And these will just wear out his tyres a little bit faster than what he would have wanted and will be costing him serious time as he's got DRS, but just he's boxed in, can't get anywhere near them. And this is really, really going to hurt his race as there, Mr. Jabe spins, there's contact with Meldrum. McKellar gets caught up in it. Not too sure if he had contact himself, but he will be fuming at that. And like I said, I thought that stop looked very, very reactionary. That could have been his plan, but that didn't seem like it was a plan that was made straight away. That very much seemed like a just been overtaken, head into the pits and try something new. As we have a Mercedes in the gravel and stuck. Sean in the gravel, and I think he's going to be out of this race. He can't get out of that gravel trap. I think he might be glitched into the barrier. He's been trying, and he is out. Now, is this going to cause a safety car? Which would be a dream scenario for Simpendale. It doesn't look that way. But as we've been talking about some stuff going on towards the back end and the mid-pack of the field, maybe just say we were talking about can Tom bring that gap down, now down to 5.1 seconds. So this race nowhere near over yet.
He is really bringing that gap down, and we've got a massive battle here for P5 and P6 and P7 as Dan Lovett on the medium starts to fall back. Will the Ferrari driver box? Those tyres evidently have seen their best days, but he does opt to stay out. Beatty heads into the pits. Finn Joe stays out and takes third place. But the important factor here is that lap 11 of 29, Tom is gaining. Although we have got a retiree of Clownfish who has retired on track, which is definitely not advised for the drivers to do. So that is not ideal. He has manually retired that car. You should head into the pits to do that sort of thing theoretically. But Beatty coming out of the pits, battling very hard with Anarchy here. He came out just behind him. McKellar is also involved in this battle. Beatty goes round the outside. There is contact between the two drivers, and that then domino effects into McKellar. McKellar tries to hold it round the outside. He's forced off the track, and he does manage to make his way through on Anarchy. But the important thing is Beatty managing to clear those cars now has a bit of clean air as there's contact between Dan and Falca Warrior, who are battling over 5th place. Incredible action up and down this grid. But Tom gaining on Simpendale. Beatty, the first of the real top runners to pit, blinking first, and now has fresh air to try and gain into.
With that Clownfish incident, I was just looking into the Discord, and it seems like there might have been a collision of Sean and Clownfish. Anyway, that was what Sean was saying. But very odd that Sean retired at turn 1, and it took Clownfish almost the full lap to retire himself. Maybe he thought he could carry on, see what the car felt like, and just thought it was better not to. I'm not too sure, but I didn't see the collision happen on the mini-map, so I can't say what really happened there.
Beatty has really undercut Finn Joe here, as has McKellar. McKellar obviously with the 10-second time penalty, but Finn Joe only coming out in 8th. Beatty is in 5th and is miles clear of the Mercedes driver. McKellar is sticking with Beatty, so that'll be an interesting battle to see what happens there as Dan Lovett picks up another 3-second time penalty. The interesting thing now is when do the hard runners come in? They've been on those tyres for 11 laps now. When is the optimal lap to pit? We've seen they've been quicker nearly the entire race, apart from the first 1 or 2 really. When do those drivers feel that it is time to come in for a fresh set of boots and some new rubber on their cars? Beatty is still in clean air, so he will only be gaining time. And if you are someone like Tom Simpendale, when do you react to that? Because as much as the tyre offset is going to be quite massive, Beatty is not exactly slow, and he will not slouch around as Dan Lovett comes into the pits finally to get off of those medium tyres and is the last of the medium runners to come in. The gap between Tom and Simpendale has sort of stabilised a bit as Beatty sets a new fastest lap of the race. He is really starting to trouble those leaders.
I think around about now would be the right time for those top 2 to pit, because they do have enough to come out in front and have a fairly decent gap. You lose probably around 21, 22 seconds in the pit lane here, and Simpendale has a 25-second lead to Beatty. So if I'm in his position, I'm probably going to pit now just to cover him off. But a very, very interesting dilemma for those top two, especially Tom, with that 5.5 second gap in the lead. He will come out right in between that little fight. But one thing I will say is that outlap for McKellar, I watched a lot of it. That really, really cost him in the fight with BT because he would have been in front of him, no question about it, had that outlap not been as chaotic as it was.
Falca Warrior on the new medium tyres gets past Meldrum on the old hards and up into 8th place. One of the men who is currently running without a penalty onto the medium tyres. You would imagine he will have to pit again, but the Alpine driver is up into 8th. Anarchy currently occupies 7th. We have got a bit of a mixed grid here now as BT is the highest man up the order who has pitted. Spamsy, who is in 3rd, Tom in 2nd, and Simpendale in 1st are yet to come into the pits. But BT is gaining on them all the time that they stay out, and they won't want to come out behind him. As much as the tyre delta will mean that they're quicker and they should be able to pass him, especially if you're someone like Simpendale, you don't want to lose any time to Tom getting stuck behind the McLaren. And if you are Tom, you don't want to lose any time to Simpendale being stuck behind the McLaren. So it is important that they choose the right time to dive into the pits. And like you say, Lewis, I think I agree. That time is now.
They're still continuing on. Will Simpendale is anyway. We'll wait to see if Tom goes in. He does. As BT, that gap a second down from the last lap. So he's very, very quick. As in comes Tom. Will he have an issue with his stop? For his sake, you'd hope not. Comes in, tyres are changed. Everything seems fine. Back out. He should emerge behind BT, I believe. No, he'll come out in front as BT coming down the main straight now. This is going to be close. Of course, Tom, that first lap on new tyres, they will be cold. So BT should have a slight advantage. However, he has ruined all of his battery just trying to get past him before he's even come out of the pits. So certainly an interesting move, one I probably wouldn't take myself, but very, very interesting nonetheless.
You would have to imagine that Simpendale will react to that. He's got a 22.8 second gap, but it is tumbling down all the time that Tom is on the fresher rubber, and he is pushing to try and execute the undercut. Neither of them have penalties. This will be for track position as Simpendale comes towards the pit lane and does box. So this is it then. This will be interesting. As Tom enters Sector 3, it is going to be close, you would imagine. 22.2 seconds was the gap before Simpendale pitted. Is the V-Carb doing enough to get out ahead? The tyres have been changed on the Red Bull, and he is now coming down the pit lane as Tom exits the final corner. Has he done enough on his outlap to beat the Red Bull out? The answer is a big, big no. He comes out about 2 seconds behind, so he has brought that gap down by around 4 seconds. But the interesting thing now is, with those tyres warmed up, will Tom be able to get in the DRS? And if so, only with 1 lap's difference, he should be able to stick with him. So will we have a battle for the lead here on lap 16? He has just about got into the DRS. Simpendale with a lot more battery, but Tom now picks up a 3-second time penalty. I said he was pushing hard to try and get into the DRS and gain on the Red Bull, and that could make or break Simp and Tom's race as they now battle for the lead. Spamsy also came into the pits in the midst of all that onto the medium tyres. 6th place he currently runs. But a huge moment on lap 16 between the leaders. Tom picks up a penalty.
Josh out. Josh out. He retired in the pit lane, so there won't be any safety car for that. Tom is now going to have to try and goad Simpendale into a mistake to where he picks up a penalty, or the more difficult option, pass him and then build up a 3-second gap, and he's set the fastest lap, so he isn't too far off that. 1.1 seconds quicker, although has a huge snap there. Critically, it does have DRS, but will that snap take him out of it? BT seemingly dropped off a little bit, although will he be able to get himself back into contention when these two start really fighting? Although we're going to have to pay attention here because Tom might fall out of the DRS through this section of the track where he will have dirty air. He seems to stay in it fairly well, just about, and he will have DRS. So now the fight begins. He doesn't have much battery, but neither does Simpendale. So now the true fight begins. Simpendale versus Tom, V-Carb versus Red Bull. And luckily for us, unlike in real life, there won't be any orders called here. This is just straight who is the faster driver.
And he is gaining is Tom. The DRS working well. The lap, fresher tyres, not going ideally for Simpendale. The gap around 5/10 now as they come to the final corner. The lapped car gets out the way. The Haas driver understanding that this is a battle for the Grand Prix lead. Tom with the penalty, but this is important for him because he needs to get through and needs to run away. Simpendale at the moment is doing enough to hold on to the lead. He is gaining in all the right places, but Tom does have the battery advantage now and is still saving up. So this is incredibly important as the V-Carb harvesting battery. The Red Bull is not, and he has got about 20% more battery to use in those DRS zones and on those exits. To the main straight we go then, and towards the fast-paced chicane. Does the V-Carb have enough traction and enough straight line speed to gain on the Red Bull? He is gaining with the DRS, but it doesn't look like it's enough as he almost has to take 2 bites of the steering there to get the car turned in, and that will not gain him time, but he is bringing that gap down all the time with the DRS. Simpendale having to use his battery, and I think Tom is going to have a great chance as we get into turn 1.
As a McLaren stopped at turn 1, he manages to get going again, and that was something just to keep an eye on. So yellow flags are gone, so all racing can continue. He's still, well, he isn't in the DRS, but he has the DRS, so he can get himself back in. So he should have it, as this is a double zone, although still out of it he does. And this is critical for him here. He really needs to get back in, as you can see him burning there, but he can't really get back in. So is his chance gone? Only 10 laps to go. He, as we say, really needs to get on with this and build that gap if he can get through. But this must be panic station for Tom now, as he's managed to get back into it. Although how long will he be in it for? He's not in it anymore. And is he going to have DRS? He will not.
He was burning the overtake.
Zone. He is gaining.
He was burning the overtake to try and get back into it, but it wasn't enough for the V-Carb driver. He should have used it when he had his chance, because his chance may have been squandered. He is now only 5/10 behind, and barring a major mistake, he should be able to keep that. Luckily for him, the Red Bull driver in the lead, Simpendale, also used a lot of his battery, so they are still around the same. So all level pegging again as we enter lap 20. The V-Carb putting a hell of a lot of pressure on the Red Bull, but he is coping brilliantly. A great battle between the top two, and here comes the V-Carb again then with the DRS towards turn 1. Not enough of a gap there as we now go to turn 2. Again, he is not close enough to the sister Red Bull to try and make a move, but incredible action on lap 20. He is trying to gain, but not close enough. As Spamsy in the Williams moves himself up to 5th, we've got a lapped car there coming out the pit lane that he navigates round well, and now the charge begins on the Mercedes of Finjo as Dan Lovett gets past Falca Warrior and up to 6th position, as we'll quickly take a look at the penalties. So Tom, Finn, Mr. Jabe McKellar, Gavboy and Sergeant Devsey have 3-second penalties. We've then got Beatty, who is on 9 seconds, Dan Lovett and Eltheniel on 6 seconds, and Meldrum is on 12.
Still just remaining with him. He could almost is a bit like Hungary, getting close but not close enough to make a pass. So still just keeping that pressure on him. But as we say, as he continues to go through the laps and nothing changing, panic will start to set in. He's got more than a big enough gap. They have pulled each other away from BT. He will get second place barring any major incidents. But at this point, with how close he's been to the lead, second place is no good for him, is it?
Exactly. You are a racer. You are a competitor. And no matter what happens, you want to win. You do not race in a league to come second. Second is the first of the losers. And you do not want to lose, especially in a championship fight. It may only be round 1, but every point counts. And Tom is looking to grab his win. He won in Monza with Ferrari in the pre-season test, and he wants to stamp his intention on this division to take the title. This is the closest he's been in a hell of a long time. He's draining the battery. DRS is open. Red Bull defends. He goes to the outside. He puts the wheel on the grass. He's almost round is the V-carb. And was that a bit far from the Red Bull? He did almost force him on the grass. He did leave him enough space. But the crucial thing is, Tom is now out of DRS.
I don't think that was over the line. I think it was just about what is acceptable. And it might not be the moral thing, but it was probably the smart thing to do, is it has pulled him out. But is this lap car manages to get out of the way, does the right thing, good to see. I personally don't think that was too bad. You're allowed to make one move to defend. He did that. And Tom did know the risks of putting his tyre on the grass. With these cars, that can happen. Hard racing, no contact, carry on for the next 7 laps.
And that is the thing. The crucial thing is the V-carb is still in the race and he is still close. He still has the battery advantage. The only thing that isn't going his way is the penalties game, but he clearly has the pace to take the lead. And it looks like his best opportunity is going to be at the same corner where he nearly crashed a lap ago. Here we go then. The overtake is burning. It doesn't look like he's going to drain too much, but he is gaining. And the Red Bull does go slightly defensive. He manages to hold the position, but Tom is much, much closer on this occasion. And as we are going to enter lap 23, this looks like Tom's best chance to try and take the lead of the Australian Grand Prix. 0.5 is the gap to the Red Bull. DRS is enabled. He's got much more battery, but isn't using it crucially. As we now go to turn 1, swings it in right over the curb. Is he going to deploy now? He is not. So Tom is just biding his time. But the only issue is, with that penalty, he doesn't have the time. We mentioned in the 100% races, you probably could get away with something like this and hope for some sort of safety car, or, you know, there's more laps for Simpendale to get a penalty. But with only a handful of laps to go now, there isn't that same chance. So the V-carb of Tom is going to have to get a move on in this race. He has got more than enough battery to take the lead when he wants to. He needs to make that decision, and he needs to make it now.
Obviously, Tom can't see this. I'm just looking through the incidents page, and from what I can see so far, Simpendale only has 1 track limit warning. So he still has another he can somewhat use up. Oh no, he actually has 2, I believe. So he's got to be very, very careful with this. One wrong move, you get yourself a penalty, and now it is just who is the quicker car. That will be weighing on his mind quite a lot, I'm sure. But Tom obviously will not know that. As I say, he cannot be thinking of that. He just has to think that he needs to get through and get through as quick as he can. He can't get through down this straight. And if you're in this position, Simpendale picks up a penalty. So now I think the pendulum swings and Tom will be all over that. Simpendale will be in his own mind thinking, how do you let that mistake happen? And now I think you have to look at Tom and think this could be his chance.
The momentum with the V-carb, the battery with the V-carb. It is all level pegging once more. The Red Bull with the penalty, but that is definitely going to be a warning for Tom as he went over the curb. but equal level pegging now, and it all comes down to what happens on track. The V-carb is gaining towards the chicane. Is there a gap down the inside? There isn't, but we are so close as we ride on board, and here is his chance then. The Red Bull surely going defensive to the inside, and he does. But to the outside goes the V-carb. On lap 24, will we have a new leader? As the Red Bull, Simpendale defending for his life. As he knows now that the momentum is not with him. He will be in his head about that mistake that got him the penalty. As we've got a Haas backwards looking at the battle. He obviously enjoys this as Simpendale makes a mistake. And now, as we enter lap 25, battery being deployed for the Red Bull. To the outside of turn 1 goes the V-car. Braking later is Simpendale. But surely the pendulum now with Tom as we head towards turn 3. He is not draining the battery. He is picking his point. But incredible stuff. And now it is all equal. And we are really racing for the lead here at Albert Park.
This is absolutely what you want to see. Tom realises that little by little, as the laps come down, you just have to get on with it. He knows what he has to do. That will be a warning for Simpendale, but one that might be worth taking as he manages to extend his gap by almost a second. And now Tom will have to make a decision to burn. He doesn't and is still gaining a lot. So definitely the quicker car. Simpendale with no battery whatsoever. This is going to come down to the final lap very much, it looks like. Still not burning, so looks like he might have figured out his plan. It is a very risky move down here, because not only for the inside car, that curb can cause you big problems, but with the gravel trap on the outside and the curb on the outside, you can get stuck there very easily. So I think Tom has made up in his mind that you have to either do it down the main straight or down that back straight. Is he going to burn here? He's got a full battery. Not yet. I don't know if this is the route I would take. I'd capitalise on the chance now, but he seems to know what he's doing. 4 full laps remain, and this is going to get very interesting. His desperation will start to creep in for Tom. Can he make a move coming up to the back straight?
I think this is incredibly smart from Tom. There is so many DRS zones around this track here in Australia that it is difficult to maintain the lead. He has got the battery advantage to Simpendale, but Simpendale simply does not know that. And he is draining like Tom, he is presuming is draining, but Tom isn't. Tom is saving at every point that he can. Even down here, he is saving the battery, and that is giving him the advantage. And you've got to think as well, when you're not using the ERS, you aren't testing the track limits as much. So he will be much safer in terms of getting a penalty, and he is still gaining on the Red Bull. And you would assume that Tom has thought to himself in his mind, the last lap is where I go for it. Now that is a risk, because there could be contact. He could make a mistake and fall out of DRS of Simpendale, but he definitely has the momentum and the advantage. Lap 27 here of 29 of the Australian Grand Prix. Spamsy is up to 3rd place and one of the only men without a penalty. An incredible debut drive from the Williams driver. But this battle at the front, you just can't take your eyes off of it. 3 laps to go now, and it looks like the pendulum and the momentum all in favour of Tom.
Absolutely, I agree with you. That was a point I was going to make. If he might be trying to set up for a final lap showdown. Oh no! Round he goes, front wing comes off, and the risks that we were talking about of trying to leave it late have come back to bite him. And Simpendale, you could almost hear the sigh of relief from wherever you are in the world. He will be thanking every single star above him right now, because this has pretty much guaranteed him that win. That surely will be a pit lane stop for Tom, as he can barely even get through turn 13, turn 14. And this is a huge advantage now for Spamsy, who'd been just quietly chipping away at Dan Lovett and Beatty, managed to get himself up to 3rd, and now faces the prospect of potentially a 2nd place finish. Unbelievable stuff to come into the closing final laps. And Simpendale surely has this in the bag now.
I cannot believe what I've just witnessed. We talked about the risk. We knew it was going to be difficult, but Tom on the exit took too much curb. The wheels lit up and round he went into the wall. He is now in the pit lane for a new front wing, and Spamsy surely senses that he can take second place on his debut. Simpendale will be breathing sighs of relief until the end of this race, as he is surely guaranteed the race victory. Spamsy does gain second place, but Tom isn't that far behind on soft compound tyres. But BT is going to try and compound those issues as he now goes to the inside of turn 3. Not enough of a gap there to make a move, but incredible scenes on lap 27. Tom, who was looking like the man who had the plan and was looking for the race lead, went into the wall, lucky not to be out and still running in this race, but that has taken the life out of it as Simpendale now comes around the final couple of corners to begin the final lap of the race.
Tom looking for a move on Spamsy. It's going to be largely irrelevant due to that penalty. BT picking up a penalty as well. That seemed very harsh. I was on board with him. Penalty for going off track, and he did go off track, but ran across the gravel and lost quite a large amount of time. Manages to get himself up into third, so maybe a chance for Tom to get himself P2. He will finish third, of course, due to BT's penalty, as we have a yellow flag, and that is BT letting Spamsy through. Not too sure what's happened there. Has he ran out of fuel, maybe?
Not a clue. I can't really see on his steering wheel what's happening, but evidently some form of problem for CRBT. It is a big thing, fuel around here, as you do normally imagine that there would be a safety car and you do take fuel out. But Simpendale, on his debut in the Red Bull, has absolutely dominated. He has led nearly every lap of this Australian Grand Prix and will open his campaign and the first season with a win. Red Bull have been absolutely flying today. They say the drink gives you wings. Well, evidently, so does the car. Simpendale round the final corner. Lap 29 and the race goes to Simpendale, who wins the Australian Grand Prix. Now, the interesting thing for Tom is he should be able to keep second place because of that issue for BT. He has a 3-second penalty, but Spamsy, who is battling with Dan and McKellar, as there is contact, and Spamsy nearly goes round. But with the penalties, you would imagine Spamsy will keep that position, but Spamsy has also ran out of fuel. So is that going to factor in? As McKellar is now going to finish third on track and should take third overall. Tom does finish second. McKellar crosses the line in third. Dan Lovett in fourth. Spamsy does take third after running out of fuel in the final couple of corners. Drags the car across the line and by half a tenth takes the final podium position. Falco Warrior finishes sixth in the Alpine. Finjo in the Mercedes finishes seventh. Anarchy is one of the only men without a penalty and will come home in eighth. And for BT, running out of fuel on the penultimate lap, his race, it was looking decent. It is not anymore, as Wiz Jokies will finish ninth. Mr. Jabe will finish 10th. Gavboy will be the last man to cross the line and take 11th place. Wow, what an incredible race and what an ending. But a rookie on debut wins in Albert Park. The Australian Grand Prix goes to Simpendale. He is recording his time on the podium. That is one he will want to remember. An incredible race from the Red Bull. And there are your final results then. Simpendale wins from Tom in second place. Spamsy in third. McKellar in fourth. Dan Lovett fifth. Falco Warrior sixth. Finn Joe in the Mercedes in seventh. Anarchy in eighth. Wiz Jokies in ninth. Mr. Jabe in 10th in the Aston Martin. Gavboy in 11th. BT struggles home to 12th. Sergeant Devsey and Meldrum finish a lap down in 13th and 14th respectively. And Ilthenial Josh, Sean, Clownfish, and Paul fail to make the flag. Well, an incredible race here in Australia. Lewis, I will hand it over to you. Who was your driver of the day?
Simperdale drove an excellent race, but just seeing here, and I didn't realise this during the race, P19 to P2 and nearly won the race as well. A phenomenal drive from Tom J there to manage to finish second, who at one point thought he'd lost that P2 and was almost off the podium to manage to recover it back to second. It would have to be Tom J simply because of how far down he was. To finish in P2 is phenomenal stuff.
Incredible action throughout the entire field, and what an opening race to Thursdays here in NRRL. If you are interested, please do drop a follow. We are racing 5 days a week, soon to be 6. I have been your commentator, Jack. Alongside me has been Lewis. It is always a pleasure, and we will see you on Sunday for the 100% tier. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next week. Take care.